everybody, I'm Steve Korossy with Properly Inspected, where we inspect the entire Tampa Bay region. We typically focus on residential home inspections. We do some commercial, but our primary source of business is residential. So typically we come out and we inspect a home for a buyer. When they receive an offer on a house and it's accepted, the buyer then has what's called an inspection period. And we come in then and inspect the home representing the buyer. So we'll come through and we'll inspect all the components of the house, the roof, the AC, the plumbing, the electrical, all the appliances that are conveying with the sale, and the walls, the structure, the trusses in the attic, the insulation, basically all the components of a house. And the reason this is important is because buying a home, whether it's for you to live in as your primary home, a second home, or as an investment, that home is an investment. And you don't want to buy a home and find out 6 months into it that now you have a bunch of repairs you have to make. So you want to have that clear picture at the time of the purchase. And that way you can make a decision. Is this the home you want to move forward with, or do you want to invest your money or your time somewhere else? So today we're here inspecting for Baskal. This home is located in Dunedin. Dunedin's an awesome place. I've known Dunedin ever since I was a little kid. I love it here. I'm not originally from here, but I've moved here 7 years ago and I absolutely love it. So when we're going through and we inspect, we're looking for defects, and we're, as licensed home inspectors for the state of Florida, we prescribe by the standards of practice for home inspection. But what we do at Properly Inspected, we actually go beyond the typical inspection. So we'll check things that are even more than what our standards of practice dictates. Let's go over here to this AC condenser. AC condensers in Florida and AC systems in general have an average typical life of about 10 to 12 years. And the reason it's so low is because they're always running here in Florida. This system was installed in the year 2000, so it's 22 years old. It's past its average typical life. We will be recommending that there be budgeting for a new AC system. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's beyond its average typical life, and at any time the system can fail. Another element of this AC condenser is that it's not affixed to the concrete pad. Here in this area, we are susceptible to strong winds and storms, even hurricanes sometimes. So we want to make sure that all these type of components are secured in the event that happens. We go around here, we have the electric panel. And some of the things we look for in here that's very common is, first of all, the average typical life for an electric panel is about 30 to 40 years. And the reason for that is over time, the metal components corrode and they may fail. So inside these breakers are little springs, and the springs need to spring to be functional. And after about 30 to 40 years, those springs stop springing. So in the event that a breaker needs to trip, it won't, because the spring is no longer functional. This is a newer panel. It was, if I had to guess, I haven't found any dates on it, but it was probably installed about 15 years ago. 15, maybe 20 years ago. So there's plenty of life still left on this. Some of the things that go into the life, why is it 30 to 40 years, some may ask? Well, it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the salt content in the air. So properties that are closer to the ocean are going to be more susceptible to those, and we're going to be closer to that 30-year time span. But if you're not, it's going to be more to the 40 years. Also, our chemicals stored nearby. Is this located inside a garage where there may be chemicals or other humid outputs? So we look at these, and some of the other things we might see, we don't see it here, but some of the other things we might see inside an electric panel, and it's very frequent, is you see these white wires here. Those are your neutral wires. And it used to be allowed where multiple neutral wires can go into one slot. However, the current standard is one wire per slot for the neutrals and for the hots. The grounds can be multi-tapped, but not the neutrals or the hots. So if we see that double tap neutral, which, like I said, used to be allowed, we call that out as a defect, and we recommend further evaluation by a licensed electrician to come out and correct that. It's a very simple correction. It's not a big deal. Like I said, this property doesn't have that, but I just want to point that out. We see that, I would say probably in 75% of the homes we inspect, we see that. Is it a danger? That's debatable. What can happen is over time is the neutral wires, because they're in one slot, the expansion and contraction of the copper wire can cause those wires to loosen a little bit. And if the wires aren't properly secured inside that slot, due to simple vibration, it can cause a spark if there's any residual power going in the neutral lines. So that's why that is considered a defect. Another issue with this home that we looked at was the roof. So average typical life for an architectural shingle on the roof is anywhere from 20 to 25 years. It's usually 20 years though here in Florida due to the hot sun. So this roof was installed in 2011. That roof covering has about another 9 years or so. The flat roof, so over the garage, the carport, and the porches, that's a modified Bidman roof covering. An average typical life for that is about 15 years. So being that it's 11 years old, we're getting closer to the time it would need to be replaced. However, we're not there. The roof looks like it's in good shape overall. One thing I did want to point out, so we have our service drop here for the electric wires up here. And in some properties, the electric service comes underground in some of the newer properties, but some of the older properties, it comes overhead. It's called an overhead service drop. And you have 3 wires that come in. You have the 2 black ones are your hots. So they each carry about 120 volts of electricity. And the bare wire is your neutral. So up here we have our service splice, service mass down to the electric meter and then over to the breaker panel. One thing I noticed when I was up on the roof inspecting the service splice area is the hot wires coming in, they're frayed. I can actually see bare hot wire up there. And I've seen that in other properties where once that rubbing kind of breaks through that hot wire and the hot and the neutral make contact, there's a big spark, and I've seen those wires just separate completely just from that contact. So this is going to be, and because it is before the meter, it is likely the responsibility of the electric company because they're responsible for that service drop. So in some communities, the electric company is responsible up to the meter, and in some communities, they're only responsible up to the service splice, which is that connection right just above the mast there. So we're going to recommend this be further evaluated because that could be a very potential serious issue. Again, if you're looking to buy a home, it hasn't been inspected until it's been properly inspected. So contact Properly Inspected. Our team of inspectors will come out and we'll inspect your property as if we're inspecting it for ourselves or a close family member because we know how big of an investment you're making.